Hello everyone and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to cover Python programming fundamentals. So right now we are in notebook number 1 and we are in the Python 101 series. And this is essentially part 1 of the course and it covers all the Python programming fundamentals. So we are going to learn about variables and variables assignment. We'll learn about math operation, how to print and how to get information from the user. We will also gonna learn about various data types. We will learn about comparison operators, conditional statements, logical operators. And then we are gonna move into how to create for loops, while loops, how to create nested loops. And then we're gonna cover functions, files, pandas, NumPy. We will also cover data visualization in Python as well. Okay, so right now we are in notebook number 1, and in this notebook we are going to cover variables assignment, math operations, precedence, and print and get information from the user. And as you guys can see here I am in the solutions notebook, and you will find when you access the course package is that you will see essentially the same name. So here you will find Python 101. Variables assignment, math operation, and so on. One of them is called the skeleton file, and one of them is a solution file. So the solution file contains everything you need with all the solutions contained, and essentially that's the full code. And in the skeleton file, you will find that here I removed all the codes that we are going to essentially write together throughout the videos. So I highly recommend that you guys learn by doing. So my recommendation is to open the videos, watch the videos, and open the skeleton file and code along with me. That will be way better, much better compared to just passively watch the videos. Okay? All right, so let me walk you through the solution notebook first, and then we are going to start with the skeleton file and code along. So in part 1, we are going to cover variables assignment. And please note that I try to include many challenges along the way for you guys. So I highly recommend that you pause the video and attempt to solve the mini challenge on your own. And then after you play the video afterwards, you will be able to find a detailed solution and with a detailed video explanation. Also, at the end of the notebook, so if you guys scroll down here, you should find that there is an excellent job that indicates the end of the notebook. And then you will find mini challenge solutions. So all the solutions for the mini challenges is included in here. Please do not, I highly recommend that you guys do not check the solution. Just attempt to solve the challenge on your own, and then you guys can check out the solution afterwards. So in this notebook, in notebook number 1, we will cover variables assignment first, and then we'll end it with 2 mini challenges. And then we are going to cover math operations, and afterwards we are going to have 2 mini challenges as well. And then we're going to cover the order of operations, which is known as precedence, and then a couple of mini challenges. Then we're going to cover print operation, get user input, and that's it. That should simply conclude our first notebook. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start with the skeleton file, okay, which is essentially, you guys can see here, I don't have any codes. And what you could do is that you can say edit, and you can say clear all outputs, and that should clear every single output that I have. All what I left with is just the comments that I have here in green, okay? Okay, so let's get started with the first part. Let's assume that I wanted to define a variable, and I'm going to call that variable portfolio underscore 1. And I wanted to assign a given number, which is an integer, to it. And when I say integer, that means that I'm referring to a number that is a whole number, and there is no decimals in there. And this number could be positive or could be negative as well. Okay, so let me show you how to define variables in Python and how to perform what we call it variables assignment, which simply means that I wanted to assign a certain value to a variable. So let me show you. So first I can go ahead and do the following. I can say portfolio. You guys can call it any name you want, but here I'm going to call it portfolio number 1. And you say equals, and then you can put any numbers in it. For example, I can say maybe 5,000, indicating that I have a portfolio. This portfolio has around $5,000 in it. Okay? So that's it. So in order to run the cell, you can go ahead and click here, this play button, or you can press Shift and Enter. So Shift and Enter will run this cell. So if you press Shift Enter, you will find that here this cell is loading. That's a good sign. And then afterwards, you should be able to see, that's it, the cell ran successfully. And you will notice that nothing happened. Like we can't see anything right now. And that's why if we wanted to view what's actually in portfolio underscore 1, I can go here, I can write the name of the variable, portfolio 1. And as you guys see here, and that's what I really like about Google Colab, is that you will find that it's kind of, like there is a smart, I would say, algorithm running in the background that is helping you to find what you're looking for. So if you write port, like right now, basically it indicates that you are looking for maybe portfolio 1, or maybe if you have portfolio 2 or 3, you will find all the options available for you. So if you go here, you can just click on the suggestions. So you just click portfolio 1, looks great. And if you press Shift Enter, you will find that now the answer is $5,000. So basically what we have done so far is that we have put an integer value, okay, into a variable, which is portfolio 1. And now I was able to view portfolio number 1. And you guys can obviously go ahead and maybe change it to 7,000. Again, Shift Enter again. You will find the number here is 7,000. Okay, what if I wanted to define maybe a float number? When I say float, that means I'm referring to a real numbers with a decimal point dividing the integer and fractional parts. So when I say integers, that means we don't have any decimal values. It's a whole number. However, Python also allows you to create variables, and these variables are of data type float. And this float, as I mentioned, contains an integer and fractional part or decimal points as well. So let's go ahead and define another variable. And I'm going to call that variable portfolio 2. So I'm going to say portfolio underscore 2 equals 2. And I can say maybe it's $2,000.5. So I'm going to say 2,000.5. Okay. And again, if you press Shift Enter, here we go. Now I define the variable and I put this number in it. And I haven't done anything yet. So let's go ahead and view portfolio number 2. So I'm going to say portfolio. And you will find that now, basically, the suggestions is now I have two variables that have been defined, portfolio 1 and portfolio 2. And I'm looking right now for portfolio number 2, obviously. So I'm just going to click on it. Here we go. And if you press Shift Enter, you will find that now the answer is 2,000.5, okay, which is great. So basically what we have done so far is just we have only defined two variables and we assigned an integer value to portfolio 1 and the float value to portfolio number 2. So what if I wanted to maybe overwrite portfolio number 2, for example? So what I could do here, I can say, okay, now I changed my mind, or maybe let's say I bought additional stocks and I decided, for example, to increase the portfolio value. So I can say, okay, I can take my portfolio number 2 here and I'm going to say equals to, and then I'm going to overwrite it. Maybe instead of 2,000.5, now I have 3,000.5, for example. And if you press Shift Enter, and if you check out again portfolio number 2, again Shift Enter, you will find that now portfolio number 2 has the most recent value, which is 3,000.5. So essentially what we have done so far is that we have been able to define a variable, and then we put value in that variable, and then we have been able to overwrite the previous or the old value by a new value, which is 3,000.5 in this example. Okay, what if I wanted to get the data type for my portfolio 1 and portfolio 2? So Python allows us to do the following. I can say type, and I can open here brackets. I'm just going to say please get me the type for portfolio number 1. And if you press Shift Enter, you will find that now the answer is int, which stands for integer value, which makes sense. And I can do the same as well. I can say type, but now I wanted to see portfolio number 2. If you press Shift Enter, here we go. And now you find that data type is float, which makes sense because here I have basically a whole number along with a decimal or fractional part associated with it, indicating that I'm talking about a float number. All right, so now it's time for a mini challenge. What I want you guys to do is the following. We defined a variable, we call it Amazon, AMZN. And this is simply the ticker symbol for Amazon stock. And we assigned these 3 values listed below to it. So for example, I said, okay, I'm going to define an Amazon variable. I'm going to put 3324 into it. And then I'm going to define Amazon variable again and put 3400 to it, and then 3530 after that. So my question is, without executing any code cell, what will these lines of code generate? So again, without running the cells, I want you guys to guess, okay, which value should Amazon have when you run all these cells? And afterwards, I want you to verify your answer by executing the code cell. The next mini challenge that I want you guys to try to solve is we defined a variable AAPL, which is simply the ticker symbol for Apple stock. And we assigned these 2 values listed below to it. So I defined Apple, I put 112 in it, and then I put 115.3 into it. And again, my question is, without executing any code cell, what will these lines of code generate? And then once you guys come up with the answer, please go ahead and verify your answer by executing the code cells. Okay? All right, so please go ahead, pause the video, and I will see you guys after the challenge. All right, I hope you guys were able to figure out the challenge. The first question, or the first mini challenge, basically we have put 3324 into Amazon, and then we have been able to overwrite the old value, and then we put 3400 into it, and then we put 3530 into it. So if I wanted to see what's in Amazon variable right now, it will simply be 3530, which is the most recent one. So what I could do right now, I can simply just double click here on this cell. And this cell simply is a markdown cell. Basically, it's just text, okay? And you can just go ahead and copy those. So I can say Control C for copy. You can go ahead, press Shift Enter here. So now it's back. And here I have a code cell that I created, right? And you can say Control V, and that will simply paste our data in here. So now I have a code that I can actually go ahead and execute. Please know that what I have in here is just text. So you can't actually go and run what we have in here. And you can simply go ahead and click Run, and here we go. You will find that the value is the most recent value, which is 3530, which makes sense. Okay, similarly, for mini challenge number 2, we defined a variable, we call it Apple. We put 112 into it, and then we put 115.3 into it, right? So if I say I wanted to see the type of Apple, because now I have been able to overwrite the integer value, and I have been overwriting it with a float value, if I try to get the type for Apple, I will be able to come up with a float data type. Let's go ahead and check that. Again, here I have a text cell. If you double click on it, you should be able to come here. You should be able to simply copy the text, what we have here, and you go back to the cell. You can press Control V, press Shift Enter, and here we go. You will find that now the data type is float, which makes sense because now we are referring to the most recent value that we added to our variable. All right, okay, so that's all I have for task number 1. I hope you guys enjoyed it. In the next lecture, we are going to cover math operations. So please stay tuned, and I will see you guys in the next lecture. Hello everyone, and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to cover math operations. If you guys remember in the previous lecture that we have been able to cover variables assignment, and we learned how to perform variables assignment specifically for integers and also for float variables. And we have been able to also obtain the data type, which stands for int, stands for integer and float. And we also went through mini challenges as well. Please note that if you guys wanted to check out the mini challenges solution, you can go ahead and check them out at the end of the notebook. So here we have the summary of all the mini challenges solutions, and I highly recommend that you guys do not check out the solution and attempt to solve the mini challenge on your own. Okay, so let's get started with the math operation. So let's assume that I wanted to define a variable, and I'm going to call that variable AAPL, which stands for the stock ticker symbol for Apple. And I'm going to initialize it with number 5, indicating that, for example, I own, let's say, 5 stocks, for example. And let's assume that I decided to maybe go out again and buy 1 additional Apple stock. So now my number 5 should be incremented or increased by 1. So now I have 5 plus 1, and that should be equals to 6. So let's go ahead and see how can I do that in code. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to define a variable. I'm going to call it AAPL, and I'm going to say equals to, and I'm going to put number 5 into it, indicating that I have 5 stocks. And let's assume that now I wanted to maybe bought 1 additional stock. So in order to perform math operations in Python, it's actually really simple and very intuitive. So I can say, okay, my AAPL plus 1. So now I took what's in Apple, which is 5. I'm going to say plus 1, and now I have 6 value, right? But now I need to specify, okay, where am I going to put that new value? So here I have to write it in a form of an equation per se, or an assignment. So I'm going to say equals to, I'm going to say AAPL equals. So what I'm saying here is, okay, I'm going to define a variable called Apple. I'm going to put 5 into it. And then I'm going to take Apple now, which is 5, add 1 to it, so that will become 6, and then overwrite the old value for Apple by the new value, which is 6. So if I check out AAPL now, and if you press Shift Enter, here we go. So now you will find that the value of Apple becomes 6, because again, I took the 5, I added 1 to it, and then I printed out the new value. Okay, another way of incrementing a variable by 1 or by any number essentially is I can do the following. So I can say AAPL again equals to 5, and I know it sounds a little bit weird to write it at first, but don't worry, you guys will get used to it. So instead of writing Apple here twice, so I can say Apple equals to Apple plus 1, what I could do is I can say AAPL plus equals 1. And that's it. That will do it for me. I know it sounds a little bit strange at first again, but don't worry, you guys will get used to it. So if I say AAPL plus equals, that means AAPL equals AAPL plus 1, which is exactly the same as what we have in here. So if I wanted to see AAPL now, and if you press Shift Enter, here we go. So now I ended up with the same value again. Please note that you guys obviously can write anything you want here. So for example, I want to add maybe 10 to it. So if you press Shift Enter, here we go. So we'll end up with number 15. Think of it as kind of, like a calculator. You can write anything you want and run it. Again, let's go back, set it to 1. Okay, looks good. All right, looks great. Next, let's assume that the price of Apple stock is, for example, $260. And let's also assume that we currently have 5 Apple stocks in our portfolio. So what I could do right now is I can calculate the total portfolio value or the account balance as follows. So if I know that I have $260 stocks, per stock, and I have 5 stocks, I can know my account balance by multiplying 5 times $260 will give me obviously $1,300, and that's my total account balance or portfolio value. So let's see how can we do that in code. So I can say AAPL underscore count equals to 5, and that indicates how many shares or how many stocks do I have for Apple. Next, I can say AAPL underscore price, and that indicates the price per stock. And here I'm going to say maybe $260. And now I can define a new variable. I'm going to call it account underscore balance equals to, and now I can multiply AAPL underscore count times AAPL underscore price. And please note that now again you will find that these are the suggestions because I wrote PR. So now basically the suggestions are Apple price. I can just click on it. Or another way of essentially doing autocomplete is by pressing tab. So if you press tab on your keyboard, you should be able to perform autocomplete. And now I can say my account balance, again tab, here we go. Now I was able to autocomplete. All right, looks great. So if you press Shift Enter, here we go. So now I simply multiplied 5 times 260 to come up with $1,300. Okay, let's take a look at another example. And please note what we're doing right now is simply math operations. So I just showed you how to add numbers here with two different ways actually. And then we learned how to perform basic multiplication. What if I wanted to, for example, perform, let's say, division, for instance? Again, really simple. So what I could do right now is that let's assume that you have 2,000 US dollars in your account. And let's assume that you wanted to buy Amazon stocks using the entire total amount. So you went to Yahoo Finance and then you checked out the price for Amazon stock. And for example, let's say it was $3,100, like 3,116 each. So my question to you is, how can I know how many shares am I able to buy with this amount? Simply put, if I divide my $20,000 that I have in here by the price for each individual stock, which is 3,116, I was able to come up with around 6 stocks approximately. So let's see how can we do that in code. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to define my account underscore balance. Again, tab should autocomplete. And I can put into it $20,000. And if I wanted to check out my account balance, again, tab should autocomplete. If you press Shift Enter, you will find that now it's telling me I defined a variable. I put $20,000 into it. And here we go. I have 20,000. And right now I can simply go ahead and know how many units I am able to buy. But before I do that, I need to specify what's my AMZN price. So I can say Amazon price equals to, and here we set the Amazon price to be $3,116. Okay, so what I could do right now, I can say, okay, the number of units, which is I can buy, or number of shares I can buy, is simply my account balance. Again, tab should autocomplete. To do division, you can just add, again, slash, and that slash indicates you are essentially performing division. And you need to divide that by the price. So you say AMZN price, again, tab should autocomplete. And you can go ahead and check out the units value here. If you press Shift Enter, here we go. And you should be able to buy 6.4 shares. So essentially, you can only buy 6 shares with this $20,000 if Amazon stock, each individual stock, is priced at $3,000. All right, okay, so now it's time for a mini challenge. What I want you guys to do is to please go ahead and write a code that calculates the total value of a portfolio, assuming that you own 15 Google stocks, and sticker symbol for Google is GOOG, and each of these stocks are priced at $1,500 each. So I just wanted to simply get the total portfolio value or the account balance. The next example or next mini challenge, I want you guys to write a code that takes in Google stock prices at 2 consecutive days and calculate the return. Okay, so if, for example, if my Google price on day 1 was 260 and you bought that stock, and then tomorrow, which is day number 2, the price went up to 280. I want you guys to tell me what is my return. So what did I gain out of it? Again, very simple, basic math calculation, Please go ahead, pause the video, and I will see you guys after the challenge. All right, I hope you guys were able to figure out the challenge. For the first challenge, which is write a code that calculates the total value of a portfolio, what I could do here, I can do the following. I can say my price equals to, and it's $1,500 each, right? Now I need to specify how many stocks do I own. So here it mentioned that I own 15 Google stocks. So I can say maybe X equals to 15, right? And now I can simply get the amount, which is essentially my portfolio value. I can say amount equals to, and I can simply multiply X times 1500, which is simply my price. So if I multiply X times the price, that will give me the amount. And I can go ahead and print out the amount. If you press Shift Enter, here we go. So now the amount is $22,000. Again, if you multiply $1,500 by 15, that's what you get at the end. For the next mini challenge number 4, what I ask you guys to do is to calculate the return given that you bought a Google share, one Google stock, at $260, and then the Google price increased to $280 in the next day. So what I could do right now, I can do the following. I can say Google underscore price underscore 1 indicates that that's for day number 1 is simply $260. And I can say Google price again 2 equals 2, and that will be $280. So now I defined two variables. What I could do right now, I can say, okay, if I wanted to know what did I gain from day 1 to day 2, it is simply $20, which is 280 minus 260. So let's do that in code. So I can say price underscore difference equals to Google price 1. So again, tab should autocomplete. Actually, I wanted to do 2 first. So Google price 2 minus Google price 1. Okay, so now I calculate the difference. And once I calculate the difference, if I wanted to know the percentage return, I need to take that gain, which is $20, and divide it by the original price at day number 1, which is $260. And that simply will tell me what is my return, and if you multiply it by 100, that will give me my percentage return. So in order to do that, I can do the following. I can say percentage underscore change equals to, and simply if you get the price underscore difference, which is what I calculated here, this is essentially the $20. And if I take the $20 and I divided it by Google price 1, which is my original price of $260, and if I take that and multiply it by 100, indicating I'm looking for a percentage change, and if I go ahead and print out, again, copy that, paste it here, my percentage change, and if you press Shift Enter, here we go. So now you will find that you have been able to gain around 7.69% just in one day. So if you bought Google stock at $260 and then let's say you sold it at $280, this is simply my percentage return. That's my return on my initial investment, which is $260. All right, okay, please don't worry, we are gonna cover that in great details over the entire course. This is kind of, like very basic examples. And that's all I have for this task. I hope you guys enjoyed it. In the next lecture, we are going to cover the precedence or the order of operations. So please stay tuned and I will see you guys in the next lecture. Hello everyone and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to cover the order of operations or what's known as precedence. If you guys remember in the previous lecture, is that we have been able to cover how to perform math operations in Python. We learned how to perform addition, actually with two different ways. We learned how to perform multiplication. We learned how to do division as well. And we tried to tie it with some, I would say, finance-related examples. And please note that these examples are just super simple right now. And we are going to leverage all that knowledge, all the skill set when we actually move into part 2 and part 3 of the course. We're going to learn how to perform a lot more advanced operations in part number 2. And in part 3, we are going to take it to the next level, and we'll learn about machine learning and even artificial intelligence strategies to try to predict stock prices and do a lot of other operations, financial, I would say, predictions using Python. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the following. So let's assume that I wanted to add 3 and 4. So I wanted to add number 3 and number 4, which is essentially the result will be 7. And then I wanted to multiply the answer by 5, okay? So what anyone could do, we can say, okay, now I can say 3 plus 4. So now I added 3 plus 4, right? And I can go ahead and multiply that by 5, okay? So if you do this, that means you have a problem, okay? So if you actually go ahead and let's go ahead and run it, Shift Enter, you will end up with 23, okay? Which is actually off compared to what you are actually looking for, which is 3 plus 4 is supposed to be 7, and then 7 times 5 is 35. But now the answer is 23. How did that happen? Simply put, there is what we call it the precedence or order of operations. So multiplication has a higher precedence than addition. So for example, if you do this, if you write this equation, which is 3 plus 4 times 5, what's going to happen is that 4 will get multiplied by 5 first, because multiplication is higher. This operation is executed first. And then the result, which is 20, will be added plus 23, and then the result afterwards will be 20 plus 3 is 23. And that's what we got here. But that's not what we are looking for initially. Initially, we wanted to add 3 plus 4 to come up with 7, and then multiply 7 times 5 to generate 35. So how can we overcome this issue? It's actually really simple. I can add what we call it parentheses, and this parentheses has the highest precedence. So I can say the following. I can say, maybe I can add a couple of spaces here to make it a little bit better. So I can do the following. I added these parentheses here, and essentially what I'm trying to tell, kind of, like the Python is the following. I wanted to add 3 plus 4 first, and this operation is executed first. So the result will be 7, and then whatever we'll get afterwards, we will multiply it by 5, so 7 times 5, we will end up with 35. If you press Shift Enter now, here we go, you will come up with 35. So now it actually, the operation basically makes sense, and now that's what we essentially were aiming for in the beginning. So please note that parentheses has the highest precedence. Multiplication and division comes next, and then addition and subtractions come afterwards. Okay, so let's take a look at another example. Let's assume that I have 1 plus 2 times 3. What do you think the answer here will be? Basically, we are going to multiply these two first. So 2 times 3 is 6. And then whatever the answer is, we are going to add that to 1. So the results will be 7. Let's go ahead and check it out. If you press Shift Enter, here we go. We come up with 7. That's great. So basically, because again, multiplication has higher precedence or higher order of operation compared to addition, this operation will be executed first, and then we are going to add the answer to 1 to come up with number 7. Okay. Let's take a look at another example. Let's assume that I have maybe number 16 divided by 4, and then I'm going to add 25 divided by 5. What do you think the answer will be here? Well, the answer will be 9. Okay, how did we come up with that? So basically, again, division has higher order of precedence compared to addition. So 16 divided by 4 is 4, plus 25 divided by 5 is 5. So if you add up 4 plus 5, the results will be 9. Shift Enter. Here we go. 9.0 actually, because now we're applying or perform division. So now we have float number as a result. Okay. All right. Looks great. So now you guys, I hope you were able to understand the idea of precedence. And now it's time for 2 mini challenges. The first mini challenge is assume that you own 15 shares of Apple stock, and each share is priced at $150 a share. And let's assume that Apple announced the launch of 5 new products with exceptional features. That actually happens pretty much every year when Apple has, their huge, I would say, event around September, October timeframe. And when they announce these products, you will find that, especially if they have, like a huge, I would say, or new product, maybe like the Apple Watch, or maybe when they launched the iPhone back in 2007, you will find that that stock price actually goes up. So let's assume that stock price increased to $170 a share. Please go ahead and calculate your total profit. Okay? All right. The next mini challenge is I want you guys to write a code that perform the following mathematical operations. Here I wanted to apply the absolute of x minus y times the result will be multiplied by x plus y in here, and that will generate the value of z. All right, okay, so please go ahead, pause the video, and I will see you guys after the challenge. All right, I hope you guys were able to figure out the challenge. For mini challenge number 5, let's go ahead and define our variables. So I'm going to say AAPL, which stands for Apple price, and then I'm going to define 2 prices. I'm going to call it new, and that will be my new price, which is $170 a share. And I'm going to define another variable. I'm going to call it AAPL underscore old equals 2. And here I'm going to say maybe it's $150, for example, indicating the old price for Apple. Let's assume that I have num underscore shares, and that indicates how many shares do I have. And here we said that we have 15 shares of Apple. So the 15 shares in here. So let's go ahead and calculate the profit. So in order to calculate the profit, my profit in dollars value is equals to, I'm going to add parentheses first, okay? And that's very important. I need to get the $20, which is simply the difference between my new price minus my old price. So I'm going to say AAPL underscore old. So that's my old price, actually new price minus AAPL underscore old price. All right, looks great. So now I have my Apple new minus Apple old. So that essentially will be 170 minus 150, and that will be 20. And now I'm going to take the results and multiply it by number of shares. Again, tab should autocomplete. And now I can go ahead and check out my profit. And if you press Shift Enter, that's what you get. You will end up with $300 in gain, or in profit, in dollar value. Basically, it's 20 times 15, which is $300. Okay. Basically, the objective of this, I would say, mini challenge is to show you guys that we need to add parentheses first, because here I wanted to perform this operation first. And then wherever the result will gonna be, I'm going to multiply it by the number of shares. Okay, and now for mini challenge number 6, let's go ahead and write a code that perform that mathematical operations. And you guys can obviously assume any value for x and y. So I can say maybe x equals to 4 maybe, and y equals to 2, for example, just to test it. And if I say z equals 2, and now a question mark, what is this? What is that absolute value? Well, the good thing is Python actually offers you built-in functions that you could use. So I can say ABS, which stands for absolute, and I can say x minus y. Please note that here you guys had to do some external research, because I didn't cover this in this lecture. But I highly recommend that you guys try to learn how to look for answers yourself, okay? And that's actually a very important skill to learn, specifically if you are new to programming. So let's assume that you have this problem. I don't know what to do with the absolute. I can just go here. I can say, please tell me what is the absolute operation in Python. You can open any of the links. So I can open maybe this link, for example, and you will find that here, obviously, you have to read a little bit about the examples. And here, for example, they have integer equals to minus 20, and it looks like you have to apply the absolute and then pass it along the name of the variable in parentheses. And that's it. That's how you obtain the absolute value. So minus 20 will become 20. You will essentially get rid of the sign. Minus 30.33 will become 30.33. So it looks like maybe I can try to do that. And that's essentially what I have done in here. I can say ABS, which stands for absolute, open parentheses, and that's what I'm trying to put inside, which is x minus y. Next, I can say multiplication, and here I can say x plus y. All right, looks great. And I can go ahead and say what's z. If you press shift enter, here we go, you will end up with number 12. Please note that you guys can obviously assume here any values you want. And this is basically 4 minus 2, which is essentially 2. You will multiply that by 6. You will end up with number 12. All right, okay. So that's all I have for task number 3. I hope you guys enjoyed it. In the next lecture, I'm going to cover how to perform print operation. So please stay tuned, and I will see you guys in the next lecture. Hello everyone, and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to cover the print operation. Please remember that in the previous task, we have been able to cover the order of operations or precedence. We learned that having parentheses is the highest precedence. We covered that that might be followed by or is followed by multiplication and division. And then at the end, we have our addition and subtraction. We also went through 2 mini challenges, mini challenge number 5 and mini challenge number 6 as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and cover the print function. So print function is used to print elements on the screen. So let's go ahead and define a string. We call this string X. So the question is, what is a string? A string in Python is simply a sequence of characters. So for example, I might want it to print out on the screen, let's say a welcome message, for example, to users. Maybe I wanted to say, welcome to Python for finance course, or maybe welcome to your bank account, for example, or maybe welcome to your brokerage account, something like that. If I wanted to print out a message to the client or to the customer, I can use the print operation. So the question is, how can I write a string, or how can I define a string? We simply define a string in Python by surrounding it by single or double quotation marks. So let me show you a quick example. Let's assume that I wanted to define a string. I'm going to call it x equals 2. And then I can say, I'm going to add a quotation like that. And I can write whatever I want. I can say, welcome to Python for finance course. All right, looks great. And what I could do right now is I can obviously just show X. So if I press shift enter, you will find that now we got this message, which is essentially a string. Welcome to Python for finance course. And please note that we are going to have a full lecture specifically on strings and strings operation. But here, I just wanted to show you how to print a message on the screen. So let's go ahead and confirm the data type for X. So I can say type of X. If you press shift enter, you will end up with str, which stands for string. Okay, what if I wanted to print a welcome message, which is this welcome message on a screen? So I can simply use the print function as follows. I can say print, and I can open parentheses, and I can pass along the variable x. That's it. If you press shift enter, here we go. You'll end up with this message to the screen, which is welcome to Python for finance course. Okay, let's take a look at another example. Let's assume that I wanted to print out a message. For example, I wanted to say maybe ticker name for, let's say, a given company is something. For example, a ticker name for Apple Inc. stock is AAPL, for example. So let's go ahead and define a variable. I'm going to call it company underscore name equals 2, and I'm going to call it Apple Inc. Okay, looks great. And what I could do right now, actually I can go ahead and run it, Shift Enter. So now I defined a variable company name, and this is essentially a string, and I put Apple Inc. into it. What I could do right now is I can use the format method to simply insert a certain value, like for example, the word Apple Inc. into a specific string. Let me show you what do I mean by this. So I can, for example, say the following. I can say print, okay? And I can say the following, ticker name for, and here, basically I wanted to insert this new value, which is Apple Inc. in here. So in order to do that, we can add what we call it curly braces. So if I add curly braces in here, and then I can continue along, I can say, okay, the ticker name for the company name, and this what we call it a placeholder. So this is a placeholder will basically receive additional information, which is Apple Inc., and I have to specify that here using the format method. So I can say the following, ticker name for curly braces is Apple, AAPL. And now what I need to do is that I need to specify, okay, what is the company name? I need to specify what am I gonna write in these curly braces in here. So to do that, I can say dot format, open parentheses, and pass along my company name. If you press tab, that should autocomplete. Okay, so as you guys can see here, if I run this cell, Shift Enter, now you are been able to actually write a print message to the screen and actually add some sort of formatting to it. So you can actually insert, let's say, numbers. You can insert any variable that you have. You can, so what you could do right now is you can actually change this. For example, like now I can change it. Maybe I wanted to maybe print, let's say, Amazon, for example. I can say Amazon. I can come here and say this is AMZN, and that's it. I can, if I press Shift Enter, this is my company name. Press Shift Enter again. Here we go. So now I was able to replace here or put in my placeholder the word Amazon and basically print out the string on my screen. So let's go ahead and return that back. I'm going to call it again Apple Inc. And here I'm going to call that AAPL. Looks great. If you press Shift Enter, here we go. Now we're back. So let's take a look at another example. Let's assume that I wanted to use the format method to essentially insert two placeholders in there. So for example, let's assume that I have, let's say, the Apple company name, okay, which is what we defined before. And I maybe have, let's say, the number of shares, okay? So for example, I can say shares equals to maybe 30, for example. And what I could do right now, I can do the following. I can say print, and now I need to insert two placeholders. So I can say I own curly braces, and that will indicate how many number of shares do I own. And I can say shares of, and I add another curly braces here. And same deal, I can say dot, so I add the dot after the string ends, after the quotation mark here. And then I'm going to add format, open parentheses, and then I need to pass it along what I want to include in the first placeholder and then the next placeholder. And order here is very important, so please make sure that you follow the order. So here I wanted to say, okay, I own 30 shares, so now I wanted to pass along the shares. So I can go here, say shares, and then I add comma, and then I insert here my company name, which is what I have here defined, which is Apple. So I can go ahead here and say company name, tab should autocomplete. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this cell. So we need to define shares first. So we put 30 into shares, and if you press Shift Enter, that's what you get. I own 30 shares of Apple Inc. And now if you change this, for example, to any value, maybe like let's say 50, if you press Shift Enter, you can end up with this. I own 50 shares of Apple Inc. So whatever value that I have here that I assigned to my variable will be placed here in my curly braces in my placeholder within the print function. All right, so now it's time for a mini challenge. What I want you guys to do is to please go ahead and write the code that print out the above statement along with the Apple sticker. So for example, I wanted to print out this, which is essentially I own 30 shares of Apple Inc. And I wanted to print also the Apple sticker as well associated with it. And essentially, I don't want it to print it off as is. All what I need to do here is to essentially have 3 curly braces in here, or 3 placeholders. One for the shares, one for the company name, and I wanted to have another one for the sticker, which is basically exact same message I need to see on the screen. So please go ahead, pause the video, and I will see you guys after the challenge. All right, I hope you guys were able to figure out the challenge. What I could do right now, I can add an additional variable. I'm going to call it ticker, and I'm going to call it AAPL. Okay, looks good. And now I need to do the following. I'm going to say print, add quotation mark, and then say I own, add curly braces for the first one, which is the first number of shares. So I own maybe 30, and then I can add shares of, and I need to put what is the name of the company. So I own 50 shares of Apple Inc. So these curly braces are for the name of the company. Afterwards, I wanted to add an additional curly braces, but this time is for the ticker for the company. Okay? All right. And what I could do right now, I can say dot, and I can say format, and I need to pass it along all the different variables in order. So first, I need to add the shares, which is the number of shares I have. I need to add my company name next. And then the last one, I need to add my ticker value. Okay? All right, looks great. Let's go ahead and run it. If you press Shift Enter, here we go. It will tell me I own 50 shares of Apple Inc. and AAPL. So what if I wanted to add these parentheses here? Well, that's easy. I can go here and add parentheses around my last placeholder. So please note that this placeholder is meant for the sticker, right? So if I added parentheses around it, that essentially will add it here in the output. So if you press Shift Enter, here we go. So now I was able to print out I own 50 shares of Apple Inc. and this is my ticker symbol for Apple. All right, okay, so that's all I have for this lecture. I hope you guys enjoyed it. In the next lecture, we are going to learn how to get user input, how to actually insert value. So if you wanted to build out an application, we now know how to print data on the screen. So if you wanted to show, for example, bank clients, let's say a certain account balance, or maybe how many number of shares, for example, did they buy. Now you know how to print it out on the screen. The next task, we're going to learn how to take data from the user, from the client. So now you can build out applications where you take data from clients and print information as well to them. All right, okay, so that's all I have for this lecture. I hope you guys enjoyed it and see you in the next one. Hello everyone and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to cover how to get user input. If you guys remember, in the previous lecture, we have been able to cover the print operation. We learned how to print out a string to the screen. And we learned also about how to use the format method to insert a specific value in a placeholder or in these curly braces as we covered before. Okay, so let's go ahead and learn how to get data from, let's say, our customer, for example. So input is a built-in function in Python, and we can simply use it to, let's say, get bank client information, such as, for example, the bank client name as an input. So once we have that, then we can take it, maybe apply a certain process to it. Maybe you can ask the user to insert, let's say, a password and give them or grant them access or deny them access. You can also use it to maybe print out data on the screen. So let's go ahead and see how can we do that. So what I could do here, I can say, okay, name equals to, and now I can use the function input, and I open parentheses, and then I can write out a certain message that will be printed out to the customer. So for example, I can say welcome to the bank. You know, I can give them a certain name for the bank, and maybe I can ask them, okay, what's your name? What's your name? Okay, looks great. And here I can add simply colon, and I need to Please note that now, because we have here what's your name, so here we have one quotation. So here I need to make sure that this one is double quotation. So now I need to add double quotation here and here. Okay, please note that you can define a string with a single or double quotation. But here, because we have used already one quotation in here, please make sure to use double quotation to define the string. Okay, so looks good. So let's go ahead and check it out. So if you press Shift Enter, here we go. Now you will find that basically this cell is being stuck in a loop. So now I cannot go and run this cell at the moment, because basically right now it's just waiting for an input. So here I have a message that is being printed to the user saying, welcome to the bank, what's your name? So now I can simply insert whatever I want. I can say maybe my name is Ryan, and let's name Ahmed, for example, as a last name. If you press Enter, here we go. Now the loop is over, okay? And what I could do right now, I can check out the name and see what's in it. So let's go ahead and insert a new code cell. So now I have the new code cell here, and I can take a look at the name. If you press Shift Enter, that's what you get. You get basically Ryan Ahmed, which is the name that I inserted here, okay, which is perfect. So basically now I can use the input function to get information from the user, which is great. Okay, so let's go ahead and take it a little bit further. Let's go ahead and obtain more than one information from the customer. So I wanted to obtain the bank client data, such as, let's say, the customer name, their age, and their assets, for example, and I wanted to print them all out on the screen, okay? And when I say assets, I mean here by, let's say, the net worth, okay? So basically it's assets minus liabilities. So let's go ahead and check it out. So I can first insert the bank client name. So I can say name equals to input, and now I need to tell them welcome to the bank. Okay, please enter your name. All right, looks great. And here I need to get the data, so that will be fed back in name. Now I need to basically prompt them with another message asking them for their age. So I can say age equals to, again, I'm going to use the input function and say, please enter your age. Okay, looks great. Again, now I wanted to obtain the net worth. And when I say net worth, that means basically the total assets minus liabilities. So for example, if you own a house that's maybe like worth, like, let's say $100,000, and you have, let's say, a credit card maybe with like $20,000. So you subtract your assets minus your liabilities or your debts. So 100 minus 20, basically your net worth is $80,000. That's obviously assuming that you own the house outright, so you don't have any mortgage on it. So I can say net worth equals to input, and you can say the following: enter your total net worth. And maybe I can give them a little bit of hint. I can say maybe net worth is assets minus liabilities. All right, looks great. And what I could do right now, I wanted to basically print out to the customer. So now the customer will insert the name, their age, and net worth. And now I wanted to print out to them a summary of all the data that they have entered. Again, it's a very simple application, but think of this as kind of, the foundation of interacting with a client or interacting with a customer. So now I can say, okay, print out. I can say my name is, and add a placeholder or curly braces. And then I can say I am, and add curly braces again. That's for the age. And maybe here I can say whatever, years old. Oops, years old. And then I can say, and my estimated net worth is, and I can say an additional curly braces too. And here we go. Now I need to add, again, if you guys remember from the previous lecture, after the string is closed here, I can say dot format open parentheses and pass it along what I got here. So I need to put the name in here. I need to put the age in here, and I need to put the net worth in here. So let's put them in order. So I'm going to say name, age, and net worth. Again, net worth. All right, looks great. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. If you press Shift Enter, here we go. Welcome to the bank. Please enter your name. And that's basically the first message that I have in here. So now I can insert, for example, Ryan, let's say Ahmad, for example. You press Enter, here we go, and you will find that now you are stuck in the second loop, which is here. Please enter your age. So I can say maybe my age is, let's say, 30 years old. If you press Enter, and now the next question is, enter your total net worth. Okay, actually this should be R, but okay. So enter total net worth, which is assets minus liabilities. Maybe I can say my net worth is maybe $3,000, for example. And if you press Enter, that's what you get. So basically now the loop is over because you obtained or you got all the data from your customers and you have been able to print out the summary for them. My name is Ryan Ahmad. I am 30 years old and my estimated net worth is $3,000. Okay? All right, looks great. Let's go ahead and take a look at another example. Let's obtain some user inputs and let's assume that we wanted to perform, for example, mathematical operations to it. For instance, I'm going to ask the customer to insert or to enter the price for Apple stock today. And then I'm going to ask them how many Apple stocks do they want to buy. And basically all this we're going to be input. So I'm going to get the Apple stock price. I'm going to take also the total number of Apple stocks that they want to buy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to print out to them the total funds required to buy. Okay, so let's take a look at an example. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say the following. I'm going to say X equals to input. And here I'm going to say the following. Please enter the price of Apple stock today. So now they will insert the price for Apple stock. And then Y equals to, I'm going to ask them, so input again, but then I'm going to ask them to enter the number of Apple stocks that they want to buy. So I'm going to tell them enter the number of Apple stocks that you want to buy. All right, looks great. And what I could do right now, I can do the following. I can say I wanted to print them out is the total funds required to buy, and I can insert here curly braces, because that will mean the number of shares for Apple of Apple stock at, and I need to specify the price, which is essentially Y value that I get in here. And this is the addition to it. So now I can say, okay, maybe like at whatever dollars is, and now I need to do a quick multiplication. Now I essentially need to just multiply the total number of stocks, which is X, which is Y, times the price for each, which is X, and that will give me the total dollar amount required. So let's go ahead and do that here. So I can say dot format, and I'm going to say Y, X, and then I need to multiply them together. So I actually either need to multiply them separately here and add them maybe in an additional variable. We call it Z. So for example, I can say Z equals to X times Y, or, and I can put Z here, or I can simply just do the multiplication directly here in the format method. So I can say X times Y. That's it. All right. Please note that actually if you run this cell, okay, you will find that you will encounter an error. So I just want to show you, let's first, the error first, and how can we overcome that. So if you press Shift Enter, enter the price for Apple stock today. So the price for Apple stock is, let's say, $3,000 today. And if you press Enter, it will tell you how many stocks would you like to buy. So I wanted to buy maybe 20 stocks. If you press Enter, that's what you get. It will tell you that you can't multiply sequence by non-int of type string. Okay, what is actually happening here? So basically, when you insert data, so when you actually insert here these numbers, like the 3,000 and the 20, you will insert them as strings. So you cannot actually multiply strings together. I need to convert them into integer values to be able to perform the operation. So what I could do right now, I'm going to copy all these cells as is. I'm going to copy them. I'm going to paste them here because this is I would say, the correct way of doing it. So I'm going to press Control V. And now what I could do is, now I got the information, which is X from the user. Now I can say, I need to convert the string into integer. So I can say X equals to int of X. That's it. So now the string that I'm going to get out of this command here will be converted, will be casted into an integer format, and now X will become an integer value. So now I can actually perform mathematical operations to it. Same deal, I'm going to say Y equals to input, enter your number of Apple stocks. So if you insert, let's say 20 stocks, again, I need to convert that from string into integer. I can say int of Y. That's it. And now I need to print out the total funds required to buy them. So I can say Y times X, and that's it. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. Press Shift Enter. Here we go. Enter the price for Apple today. Let's say $3,000. Press Enter. Enter how many, the number of Apple stocks that you want to buy, maybe 20 stocks. Press Enter, and here we go. Now you can actually say the total funds required to buy 20 shares of Apple stock at $3,000 each is $60,000. Looks perfect. You multiply 3,000 by 20, which is $60,000. That's great. All right, so now it's time for a quick mini challenge. What I want you guys to do is to write a code that takes in the name of a stock, the price at which it's selling, the number of stocks that you want to own, and print out the total funds required to buy the stock. Find a sample expected output below. So here we go. So basically, I'm going to ask the customer to enter the price of the stock you want to buy, enter the number of stocks that you want to buy, enter the name of the stock that you want to buy, let's say Amazon, and then you mention the total fund required to buy five number of Amazon stocks at 3,000 is $15,000. Please note that this is very similar to what we have here, but I just added a little bit additional line so you guys can go ahead and try to figure it out. Okay, so please go ahead, pause the video, and I will see you guys after the challenge. All right, hope you guys were able to figure out the challenge. Simply put, I can go ahead here and actually copy that as is. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come here and paste it here. Insert the code cell, paste it here, and here we go. Enter the price of, it's not Apple anymore, it's going to call it stock. Enter the price of stock you want to buy. So let's call it this way, you want to buy. And this price will be X. Looks good. Then I'm going to ask them for enter the number of stocks that you want to buy. Enter the number of stocks that you want to buy. Looks good. And then the customer will insert Y, and I need to cast it into an integer format. Looks great. Then I need to ask them an additional question. So now I need to ask them the following question. I'm going to say Z equals 2, and then I'm going to say input, and I need to ask them enter the name of the stock that you want to buy. All right, looks great as well. So actually let's add colon here at the end. Looks great. And please note that this one will be a string, right? I don't want to insert or apply any mathematical operations to it. So it doesn't really matter if I don't need to convert it into an integer. It's already a string, it's good. I can go ahead and print it out. And I can say here the total funds required to buy whatever shares, let's call it number of, here I need to add a placeholder, so I can add curly braces, number of whatever stocks at whatever price is, actually I don't need the dollar because I don't have dollar there, is curly braces. And now I need to insert them as follows. I need to insert Y first, so the total number required to buy Y amount of stocks, which is essentially the number here, of whatever stocks. So now here I have the ticker, so here I need to pass it along the ticker first, and that will be Z. So here I have Y, Z, X, and then X times Y. All right, let's give it a shot. Shift Enter. Here we go. Enter the price of stock you want to buy. Maybe it's $3,000, so I can go here. I can say $3,000. Enter. And then I'm going to say, enter the number of stocks that you want to buy, which is what I have here. And maybe I have, for example, 5 stocks. Enter. And then I'm going to ask me, please go ahead and enter the name of the stock that you want to buy. And the name of the stock here, for example, is Amazon. So I'm going to say AMZN. Enter. And here we go. The total funds required to buy 5 number of Amazon stocks at $3,000 is $15,000. Looks great. And that's it. That's exactly what I was looking for. All right. So great job. Excellent job. So we have concluded the first notebook that covers variable assignments, math operations, precedence, print and get operations. So let's go ahead and recap what we have learned in this section. So first, we covered variables assignment. We learned how to assign a float or integer value to a variable. We learned how to get the type of a certain variable. We also covered a lot of many challenges along the way. We also learned how to perform math operations. We learned about precedence. And then in step number 4, we have been able to print out and use the print operation to print out data to the customer. We have been able to also use the format method if you wanted to insert specific value in a placeholder. We have been able to also get data or input from the user. We have been able to learn also how to perform mathematical operations on data that the users have entered. And that's it. So I hope you guys enjoy this lecture and see you in future lectures.